Hello class. To help you out with JavaFX chapters 15 and 16, I made up a pizza application that you can see on the screen here. As you can see, we've got a number of different controls and a graphic of a pizza. Well, let me just explain how this is laid out a little bit. Everything is contained in one V-box, a vertical box. This is a horizontal box. This is a horizontal box. The toppings is another horizontal box. This is actually a stack pane, which was added to the V box. And then we have another horizontal box here. These are text fields, and you'll notice that I've got hints in the back. We'll show you how to do that. Here are radio buttons. Checkboxes, of course, are appearing square in the JavaFX window. This is actually a label here where we're going to show the updated cost based on the selections that are made up here. So I'll give it a run, show you how it works first, and then we'll take a look at the code. And we'll just make up a phone number here. Okay, let's say I want the works here. I want extra large with all of the toppings. I just used 4 toppings just to keep it simple. And that's all I have to select here. So if I click this button here, you'll notice that my cost updates to $19, which would be correct. 15 plus $1 each for these would be $19. Now, to place the order, I added something here that I thought you might find interesting. Notice I've added a tooltip. When I hover over the place order button, we get what's called a tooltip. I'm sure you've seen that many times before, which shows the purpose of the button. But it's also reminding you that if you don't enter the address, the way I've set this up is if the address and phone number fields are empty, this won't work, or at least it won't complete. So I'll place the order, and what I've got the order showing up in a second stage window, which summarizes the order and indicates where it's going to be delivered, etc. Okay, so we can close that. And finally, the last component is the reset button here, which will just reset everything back to the start. Okay, so that's the application. Now, let's take a look at the code. Here's the code. I just created a new JavaFX project, and I'm working in the main class, as you can see here, that's generated by that. So first of all, I want to create an unusual font, so I called it Big, and it's an Arial font, medium, and size 18. So that's the large green font that we saw in the JavaFX window. And then, of course, we have our 2 text fields. I'm using TF as the prefix for text fields, so-called Hungarian notation. Then I created radio buttons for each of the sizes, because we only want to be able to select one size, and that's what radio buttons are for, so that you can only select one of the group. However, to select one out of the group, you have to create a toggle group and then add all of them to that toggle group, which we do a little bit later on. Here we're going to create our checkboxes for all of the toppings, and you'll notice I use CB as the prefix for checkbox. And then here's the stack pane. I created a stack pane to hold the image of the pizza. The reason I wanted to do that because a stack pane always centers whatever you put into it. And we're going to put an image view in that stack pane, and the image view will refer to the pizza graphic. The label that displays the final cost of all the selections is called label total, and we set it to be, as you can see, 0 initially. Now here's a static variable that we're going to use to keep track of the total as we make changes in the graphics form. And we have 3 buttons, one for updating the cost, one for placing the order, and one for reset. Here's that tooltip. I don't believe this is in our textbook anywhere, but I thought it was kind of interesting. I thought you might like it. You might find a place where you might want to use it. Pretty easy. Just use the tooltip class, specify what the tooltip you want to be, and we'll show you how easy it is to attach that to one of the order button, BT order, a little bit later. Now I did want to create 2 new stages. I want a stage for the warning, which we haven't shown you yet, and also the stage that pops up with the information about the completion of the order and where it's going. So here we go. Now initially, as I mentioned earlier, everything is in one big VBox. So this is going to be the container for all of the other parts of the form. Pardon my conure making noise. Conure is a really good watchdog, so obviously you saw somebody walk by outside. Sorry about that. Now, we're going to set up an H box for the address and telephone number, and I'm going to set those up to be centered so that everything's going to be centered in that H box. And we're also going to create the text node. Now, it's the text node that we're going to display in a large font in green. So this is the one that we're setting, that font that we created at near the top of the document here. That was for using this text node. And I neglected to say why I put all these. Notice I've got these all above the start method. The start method's way down here. The reason that I put all of these controls up here is so that I can access them in any method below. Right? By doing that, they're accessible anywhere in this program. And I've made them private, as you should always do as a rule, with the exception of the, I guess I did it for all of them, yeah. Okay, carrying on here. So that creates our text node called tinfo, and here's how you display the dimmed hint in the back of the text field. Set prompt text. That will display in the back, very dimmed out, and it indicates to the user what the text field is for. That just saves you having to put a label next to the text field to identify the purpose of the text field. So that's a nice feature. Set prompt text. Now, I had to add these 2 lines here because if I didn't, what happened was when I started up the form, the focus would go into the address text box and it would obliterate the prompt text. So I didn't want that to happen. So I set the focus to be false for both the address text field and the phone text field. Finally, having done all that, I add the text node and the 2 text fields to the H box that we set up here. So that's the first row at the top of the form. Then we move on to another H box, and this is going to be for the sizes. This is where the radio buttons are going to go. So we have to add them all to the toggle group. It's unusual how that has to be done in JavaFX. You would think that you would specify the toggle group for the radio buttons. Well, in fact, that's not the way it works. You specify the radio buttons for the toggle group. So it's kind of strange how that works. Here's another text that's going to be at the first of the H box. It's going to be in that big green font. It's another text node. And here's where we're adding them. There's the text node and then our 4 radio buttons. Below that, I've got another H box. This is for the toppings. Once again, another text node called it tops. And we add that, and then we add our checkboxes. So that completes another H box. Now the image. I created an image view called pizza, and I connected that to pizza.jpg. Now remember, in order to do this, I did have to create a source folder in my project, which is right here. I did have to create a source folder called image. This is a source folder that I created from the menu, and that contains the image file. Actually, I had two of them, but I decided on just one. Now, then remember, we did create a stack pane. The stack pane was called pizza pane. So we're going to add the pizza image view to the stack pane, and then it will show up nicely centered. Now we've got another HBox to set up. This is going to show the cost of the pizza and the various buttons near the bottom of the screen. We want that to be also centered. Started off with a label for the cost. Set that to be, instead of a text node, I went with a label this time. And we also did the same thing for the actual label that's labeled total. That's the one that's going to show the actual numeric value of the cost. Okay, this one here is obviously, this label is just going to show your cost. And so we add that two labels, and then the three buttons are added to the HBox. Just a series of HBoxes. Now let's get into the lambdas. What we want to do is we want to program those buttons, right? Buttons respond to click events. Clicking a button in JavaFX fires an action event. An action event can be set up with set on action. Notice action here. So that's going to fire an action event. Now the compiler knows that an action event has a handle method. Well, what we're doing with this event here, by running, I've chosen, instead of doing this all inline here, I've chosen to run a separate method, which I've defined below, because there's quite a bit of content in determining the value of the pizza, the cost of the pizza. So I thought it was just a little bit too much to put in one big, large lambda, although I did it down below here. But just wanted to show you different ways of doing it too. Okay, so the compiler knows that this is going to be the handle method of an action event is what we're coding here. So whatever we put in this method here is like a replacement for the handle method of an action event. And this is what registers it, right? This set on action is what registers this lambda with this button. Likewise, here's the tooltip being set up. Okay, just have to specify the name of the button that you want you apply the tooltip for, and then the name of the tooltip with the set tooltip method. And then here's another lambda starting. Now in this case, I wrote the entire lambda. It's a rather large one, but not a problem. You can do that if you want. And what we wanted to do initially is I don't want the form to submit if the user hasn't specified the address or telephone. And so as you can see, I'm using getText.isEmpty, or if the phone.getText is empty, I'm going to fire this code here, which is going to generate a stage. We're going to create a label, and then we're going to, and the label is going to be in red, and we're going to show that in another stage called stage 1. Okay, so we'll show you how that works in a minute. Now, if, however, the user has specified the address and the telephone number in the form, then we will go ahead and complete the order. Basically, what we're going to do is build a string. We're going to build a string starting off like this, a string called order, and then we're actually going to get the value that's returned by the update method, which we haven't looked at yet. It's down here. But the update method is going to return a string. Update is going to return a string. And we'll concatenate that string onto the string order that we've started here. And then we'll add some more stuff to it, indicating where it's going to be delivered and some other information. We're going to display all of this big string that we're creating here. We're going to display it in a text area in another stage called stage 2. We'll specify that string that we've created as the contents of the text area, and then we'll display that text area or that stage. Okay, so that's how that works. Here's the reset button. Once again, I used a different method for that. And obviously, this is a lambda expression again, but we're going to run the reset method when we click on that button. And here's where we're adding everything to that one big virtual box. Okay, basically adding all of our H boxes plus the pizza pane, which was a stack pane here, to the vertical box, and then displaying the whole thing. Now let's just take a look at that update method. In order to get the update, I have to read the form's radio buttons to see what price, what size was selected by the user. Okay, and in order to do that, I also want to develop a string called summary. So I created a string called summary and made it an empty string to begin with. Now, I want to grab the radio button text that's after the $sign. If you think about how we coded the radio buttons up here, like let's see if we go way up here. Like look at the text on the radio button here. I did put a $sign in there. And what I want to do is I just want to grab this and then convert that into a double. Okay, so that's what I want to do. I want to grab just that part, which is the text property of the radio button, but I want to also get just part of it. So in order to do that, what we did was right here, I had to use get selected toggle. The get selected toggle will return whichever one of the radio buttons has been selected by the user, and I want to get its text. And notice here we're using a pretty complicated casting to cast it into a radio button. Okay, so we get the radio button's get text method and store it in a string called SZ, short for size, and then I locate the $sign in that text and add one onto it, and then I use the substring method of the string class to get everything that's after the $sign, but then I want to convert that into a double, so I use double.parse double, and I add that onto the total. So now I could have had a bunch of if blocks to determine which radio button was checked, like I did down here, by the way, with the checkboxes, but instead I decided to try something a little different to shorten it up, and it worked very nicely. I never actually tried this before, but it's actually pretty cool. Get selected toggle is the secret. It lets you know which one has been selected, and then we can grab the string, grab the text property of that radio button, and then we can work with that. And basically what I'm doing is extracting the number that is after the $sign and adding it onto the total, which started off at 0. Now I also wanted to add on to the string, the summary string, so I concatenated the size on. Then we're processing the toppings. Now that did require an if block for each one, and it's the isSelected method that you would use to see if it's selected or not. If it's selected, we'll add $1 to the, all of our toppings are $1. We're going to add $1 to the price of the pizza, but we'll also add on to the summary string. We'll take whatever the string was associated with that topping and add it onto the summary string. And we do that for each of the radio buttons. And then I want to set the text of the, I've got the total price. At this point, at the end of update, I have the total cost of the pizza as a double. So I then want to display that in the label. Well, that uses the set text method of the label. But I want to display, that has to be a string. So I have to convert that double to a string using string.format. Show it nicely in 2 decimal places as currency. But I want this method also to return the summary, because I'm going to use it. We'll use it. And we actually did show you where it's used, I believe, up here. Find that action. Right here. There's where we're catching the value returned by update and adding it onto the order string. Okay, and Now the reset button, basically there's clear. Clear is all you need for a text field, and set selected false works for radio buttons and checkboxes. And then I wanted to also reset the text of the label total back to being the 0. And I wanted to close that stage. You can close a stage with whatever the stage name is in the close method. So I'll run it one more time. I hope you found this interesting. Now I'm not going to put in the address. So you notice here I get a warning. There's that stage that pops up with the red text in it. Okay, so we won't let we can't place the order. Well, I haven't even selected anything, but we can't place the order until let's get a pizza here that's going to cost $12. $10 size plus two toppings, so that's $12. But try to place the order, won't let me because I haven't specified the address and phone. As soon as we put some content in here, it'll be okay. Reset will reset the phone. By the way, the update cost button should be live. If I try these values, get the cost, make a change, get the cost again, it should be reflected without having to reset the form. Okay, every time you make a change, it's because we're reading everything again, right? We're reading all of this all over again every time when we run the lambda that's associated with this button. Well, I hope that helps you with your assignment and understanding JavaFX. I had fun making this up. I'll send you a zip containing this project as well as a link to this recording. I'm going to put this recording up on YouTube. Hang in there, and we will see you next week. I am feeling better, by the way. Take care and be safe, everybody.